Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to Yorkshire in the north of England. We're going to a small town called Great Heck, which of course is home to Great Heck Brewing, and today we're having a taste of their Madagascar, which is a vanilla wheat stout, so it should be a really quite nice one for us. It's got good ratings on Rate Beer and BeerAdvocate.com, so quite looking forward to giving this one a go actually. Should be very nice. But as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll take you through a very brief history of the brewery. Will only be a minute or two long, but if you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. Brewery website's in the video description for you below as usual, along with a link that will take you to my future reviews that I'll do from Great Heck, because I've heard they are very good, so I'm sure I will do some more. Please add me as a friend on Untappd and also like my Facebook page as well. You'll find all the links in the video description below, as I said. So as I told you, this brewery is from the very small town of Great Heck to the southeast of Leeds and in northern Yorkshire in England. So the brewery was founded by Jason and Denzel back in 2008, and these guys were motorcycle enthusiasts, and Jason had actually been a home brewer for quite a long time, and they actually used to brew beers for when they were hosting barbecues for biker get-togethers basically, and then it just kind of evolved from there. But originally the guys had decided that this would just be a hobby, and that any extra beer they produced would be sold to the pubs, would be a bonus essentially. But the brewery has grown really quite steadily ever since then, and it's actually in an old bike shed where they used to fix up their motorcycles and things, and they've converted that into a brewery. So quite interesting that bikers have just gone into brewing beer. It almost reminds you a little bit of the hairy bikers who go around and cook food and things. So should be quite an interesting beer, like I say. But originally the brewery only brewed their beers for the casks, and they've just recently moved into brewing them for bottles as well. But if they were founded in 2008, you're talking about 7 years or so that these guys have been in existence. But they seem to be getting quite a good reputation these days, and I bought this beer in Edinburgh, so if it's getting brought up here it must be a pretty good one. But anyway, just to list the other beers you can get from Great Heck Brewing, the main ones that they had listed on their Facebook page, there's a Mishmash, Black Jesus, Citra, this guy here, Madagascar, the vanilla stout, there's Shankar IPA, and also Yakima IPA as well. But there are, if you go and check out the profile on Rate Beer for the brewery, there's a whole host of other ones listed there, so I'm sure they do a great variety of beers, and they're probably quite an experimental brewery since they're quite a small operation. So let's get stuck into this guy then. This one is a 5.4% vanilla stout. I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little quick look at the artwork again for this one before we open it up. Quite nicely presented actually. It reminds me a little bit of a label that Brewdog had, which was for the Mixtape 8. It's this kind of sort of machine style thing. It reminds me a little bit of some of the kind of 60s art, you know, like Vegas lights and things. This label kind of reminds me a little bit of that, but it's quite nicely presented actually. I'll definitely steam the label off this one and keep it actually. But yeah, it's presented very nicely. It says on the side, Madagascar is a far from traditional stout made with a very high wheat content and additions of whole Madagascar vanilla pods late in the boil during fermentation. Brewed with English hops, there's a balance of subtle flavours, meaning the beer is surprisingly drinkable, smooth and satisfying. So should be a very nice one for us to try actually. Quite looking forward to this. But it comes in at 5.4%. They didn't actually have listed on the website what the exact hop and malt profile was for this beer, so I can't really tell you that unfortunately, but it is 5.4%. Plain bottle cap by the way. So let's get this guy out and into the glass. So the thing that's always good, I find, I've said this many times with my beer reviews, it's actually quite hard in Scotland to get some of the really good English beer. You have to go to your proper beer shops, the proper specialist craft beer shops, to get some of the good English beer. But when you can actually get a hold of the beers out of these little places, they do tend to be really quite good actually. But the ones that you get in the supermarket are kind of just like fusty water. But these little English craft breweries are very good. So as you can see, if I hold it up just out to the light there, you can see it's poured a nice kind of rosewoody colour actually. There's a bit of a ruby edge to it. I'm not quite sure if you can see that on the camera, but there is a ruby edge to it if you just hold it up to the light. I guess if it was a bit lighter it would be transparent, but as you can see you just can't see through it at all. There's a sort of kind of not quite beigey colour, a kind of creamy colour, frothy white head on there, about a half finger, but it's just fading away to be a very thin foamy layer these days, but you can't really see that much of it. But it looks very nice beer. The carbonation, not really any visible actually. You can see little bits going up towards the bottom of the head, but no big bubbles sticking to the side of the glass or anything like that, and no sediment in this one either, incidentally. So let's give it a smell and see how we get on. quite interesting. You have to sugar it up a good bit to get the vanilla notes out of it. But you've got a nice coffee, a nice kind of roasted coffee note coming out on the top, I think. There's a bit of breadiness in there too, maybe a little bit of a sort of German rye bready nose on it as well. But you can pick up that kind of underpinning vanilla. It is a bit more of a kind of subtle characteristic in the nose, but I'm sure it will be quite prominent in the flavour. But you can smell it just underpinning the whole beer, really. There's a bit of, I think there's a little bit of kind of earthy hop character in there, but you can pick up some kind of chocolatey, sweet chocolatey elements coming out. And the vanilla seems to mix in with the chocolatey notes in this beer, actually. Now, I think there's a little bit of smoke in there too. On top of that kind of roasted coffee character, I think there's a little bit of a smoky flavour in there too, or smoky note. But there's a definite little bit of woodiness, but you can pick up some of these English hops in there, the kind of earthy characteristics that you get from English hops. But it's got everything you would expect. A nice vanilla underpinning, some sweet chocolate, a little bit of roasted coffee, which I think is the most prominent component in the aroma. A bit of bready characteristic too, a sort of rye-ish, German rye bread note it reminds me of a little bit. And there is a bit of a smoky character to it as well, but overall it smells like a really nice beer. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this guy. This is the Madagascar from Great Heck Brewing in Great Heck in Yorkshire. Slangia. It's really quite nice, actually. You can feel the wheaty spice in this. The first impression is that it's quite a coffee forward beer, if that makes sense, but then you get the roasted character coming out and you can feel a little bit of the wheaty spice just mixing in with that. Just sugar it around your mouth a little bit and let your mouth fully adjust to the flavour before you actually think about the different components that are in this beer. Yeah. The beer comes in initially with a quite roasted coffee character in there. It smooths out, and that's when you get a bit more of these vanilla flavours. It works really well, actually. The flavours blend together quite well, but the lingering component in the aftertaste is right in the middle of the back of the tongue. You've got this dark, bitter, roasted coffee character just sitting there. Yeah. Definitely a roasted, dark, bitter coffee just blanketing the tongue there. Around the edges of the palate, at the very back corner, you're getting some dark, quite earthy hop characters, and that just spreads forward a little bit. And it smooths out as you go round the front edge of your tongue. You can just pick up that earthy hop character. There's a little bit of smooth grassiness around the front where the hop character becomes a little bit lighter, but really it's a dark, earthy character that you're getting around the hoppy parts of the palate, mainly around the edges of your tongue there. It's really quite nice, actually. It's quite strong in its coffee bitterness, actually, I will say that, but there's a good bit of roasted character in there too. Across the middle of the palate you can pick up a kind of lighter, bready feel to this beer, which works really well for it, I have to say, and it just everything else just builds on top of that. It does feel a little bit smoky, if you like, a dark roasted smoke in this one, a little bit, you could maybe say a little bit charcoaly, but the coffee elements of the flavour come over that quite well. But you're getting a nice sweet chocolate that just builds more into the aftertaste. The sweeter elements from the chocolate flavour come out. You can pick up a little bit of a wheaty spice in this beer as well, just around the insides of the edges of the tongue there. It works really quite well, I have to admit. It's a little woody. There is an element of a kind of woody, maybe slightly nutty flavour in this as well, just mixing in with that bready characteristic of the beer, but the vanilla presence is mixing in with everything. There's a kind of a bread, you can pick the vanilla out with the chocolatey flavours and the coffiness as well, and the wheaty characteristics. The vanilla is just a kind of very kind of light element, if you like, that just underpins the whole beer, if that makes sense. It works really quite well. But yeah, definitely quite forward on the roasted coffee and the bitterness, but as your mouth adjusts to it you get more of these sweet chocolatey flavours and the vanilla flavours coming out too. But very, very nice beer. The English hops work well with it as well, the kind of earthy characteristics that become a bit smoother and grassy as you come towards the front of the palate. But in terms of the mouthfeel, this one, it's a nice kind of mid to full bodied beer, I would say. To me, this is definitely a tasting beer. I wouldn't drink more than one of these. This to me is a kind of dessert beer or something like that. To me, you just don't session a stout, but it's a nice kind of tasting treat every so often. But you've got a nice, quite smooth carbonation on this one. It does feel quite light and quite a wet mouth feel as well. There's a little bit of creamy character to it, but there's a good roasted coffee bitterness to it. It gives it a little bit of dry character in the middle of the palate. But there are sweeter aspects to the malty feel as well, and around the edge of the tongue there's that earthy hop character with a little bit of grassiness, like I was saying. But overall, it's not, the hoppy characteristics of this beer aren't too dry. The main dryness comes from the malt base, I would say, and that roasted coffee bitter character. But overall, it's actually a pretty nice stout. I'll definitely need to go and try some more of their beers from Great Heck. If this is one of the darker ones, so I'll maybe see if I can get a hold of one of the lighter ones, maybe one of the IPAs or something like that at some point. So hopefully I can do that and find them in Edinburgh or Glasgow or somewhere like that. But this has been really nice and quite interesting stout. As I say, this one to me is more of a tasting beer than a session beer. But it is quite light and quite nice and drinkable, so if you like your kind of coffee forward stouts, then this is definitely one you want to go for. And as well, if you like vanilla and you like a coffee forward stout with little twerks to it, or little quirks to it, sorry, not twerks. If you like a little quirky coffee stout, then this is definitely one to go for, because you can pick up the vanilla and the wheaty characteristics just underpinning this beer. So very, very nice one and a good effort from Great Heck Brewing Company. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. As always, let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on the beer. If you do happen to have tried it before, feel free to add me as a friend on Untappd, and do like the Facebook page as well. Your support would be much appreciated there. I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. In the meantime, until my next one, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I'll catch you soon with the next review, and as I say, hopefully we can go back to Great Heck in the fairly near future. Slàinte.